Hi, good afternoon. My name is Daniel. Let's pray, God. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity today to celebrate Phil's life and the legacy he left behind. Phil was a great example of being a good man, starting with his service in the Marines, his ability to work hard and work with his hands, but most importantly, his fierce love for Robin, their kids, and their grandson. God, I pray for strength, wisdom, and guidance for his family during this season. Help them to grieve, but also help them to celebrate that Phil is now with you. God, I pray that your will be done today, and I ask that you surround us with your love. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
I didn't proofread this, and I was never good with public speaking, so bear with me. My name is Kira, and I'm Phil's daughter. My dad was the strongest person that I know. My dad was always even-keeled and cool under pressure. My dad was my rock. And that's one of the reasons why I asked if you would be there in the delivery room with me. I know that sounds really weird, but I promise he was up by my head. I was this pre-epidural, but I was like, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe a little bit louder and a little bit sharper. And he said, as he was holding my hand, he was like, Pumpkin, this is a no-choice situation. And that's the advice that I was looking for in that room. And that's what keeps playing in my head over and over right now. My dad was my mentor, and he still is my mentor. He was the most intelligent person that I know. He could teach himself how to do almost anything. He taught me that a formal education is not an indication on how smart someone is. It's how resourceful and eager to learn you are. It's having determination and grit. The ability to read and comprehend also helps. He was the best dad. And he was so patient. He always taught Reid and I to think critically about our mistakes and how we could learn from and improve upon them. He never judged and was always there to give me a hug and pick me back up when I stumbled. Thank you. The only mistake that he never let me forget was the one time in my early 20s when I called him Captain Fucking Obvious. But we won't get into that any further. And he was so patient. I remember I was 25 weeks pregnant, and he was teaching me how to drive stick in the Ford fucking Ranger. And I kept stalling out. And he never got stressed, and he never got upset, and he only told me one time out of the 20 times that I stalled the vehicle that I was ruining the clutch. The most important thing that my dad taught me is that family is everything. He never missed a band concert. He was always our emergency contact because he'd pick up the phone. Love you, Mom, but here's a couple things that my dad would tell us. Be nice to your mom, because yes, she's your mom, but she's my wife first. I'm not sure if that was a lesson or a threat, maybe a combo of both that stuck with me. Keep a good relationship with your brother, because one day you both will be all each other have. Always end every conversation with "I love you," because you just never know what will happen. Are you gonna talk about Dad's 2 rules, Reid?
You got it.
Okay. My dad had two rules for me and Reid growing up. And one was don't waste my money, and the second one was don't fuck with my quality of life. Pretty all-encompassing. Anyways, my favorite memories of my dad are of my son Asher and his Poppy. My dad loved him so much. My husband said he'd never seen my dad smile unprompted until we had Asher. And my dad would always just look at him from across the room and just smile, not say anything. Poppy always brought Asher all his favorite foods, bananas and blueberries. Poppy took laps around the house when Asher got fussy. Poppy always took the night shift when my parents watched him and didn't complain once. My dad loved being Poppy, and I think I loved watching him being Poppy even more. I love you, Dad, and you're the blueprint for me. Thank you for being here.
Hey everyone. Well, one thing I do know that after dressing up like my dad for a day, that he had horrible taste. Not kidding. I just wanted to share a few memories and kind of the experience of growing up with my dad, being my dad, and the lessons he taught me along the way and who he was to me when I grew up. When we were growing up, Kira touched on a lot of these, that his goal and everything for us was family was always first, and that you only get one of those, and then you need to love your mom and your sister. These are the only ones you got at the end of the day. And when I was growing up, there were so many times he was just always just there. He was there for my Little League baseball games, even though I couldn't hit a ball for 4 years, but he was there to watch me miss and swings every time. He was at every band practice I ever had to go to, every concert, performance, graduation, life crisis moment. He was answering the phone. He was always there to have him in his life. And he was always listening. And every time you talked to him, every time you talked to my dad, you had all of his attention. It didn't matter who you were, what walk of life you came from. He would listen to you and talk to you like you're the only person in the world. And he loved you like you were the only person in the world as well, no matter where you came from. He would be willing to help anybody out. Yeah, I always think back, there's telling my mom this memory the other day. I was embarrassed by it at the time. I was maybe 8 or 9. I was playing with my Transformers toys in the loft, and I was facing the other direction. I turn around, I see my dad is just sitting there. He's smiling, and I was mortified, embarrassed that he got me playing that. But I talked to him about that later on. I think about it this day. And I could always tell my dad was excited to be my dad. And whenever I never had a moment where I thought my dad didn't want to be there. He was always there and made my friends feel like family, no matter who they were. And he was just the ultimate father figure, and I love him very much. and he was my superhero, and he'll always be my superhero. And I just appreciate everybody coming. It was so great to see everybody from all over the U.S., from places we've lived and we've moved, and how we touched your lives, from employees to family to friends. And if you ever met my dad, it's great to see how many people's lives that he managed to affect and have a positive impact on, and continue to be the role model that I always saw him to be, and see that's who he was, even in his life that I never saw. So thank you guys all for coming, and I just really appreciate everybody being here to celebrate my dad. And thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. See if we can get through this without any tears. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to celebrate Phil's. Thank you. You got some more? Phil's life and the legacy that he left behind. Robin called me very early on when this happened, and obviously in shock. Just don't have words when things like this happen. But wanted to help any way we could, and so we kind of dove in and started to go through things with the family. And Reid said, "Well, I think we want to do it at our house. Got about 40 people coming." I'm like, all right, okay, maybe we could do this here. And I have a tendency to overstep my boundaries a little bit sometimes. I got a big mouth and no filters. So we ended up having it here, and I'm watching Robin's Facebook page, and Reid's Facebook page, and it's going from 37, 38. My team were like, hey, ain't no way. There's this math don't math. This man has touched too many people and for there to be 40 people show up here. So we obviously over-ordered and planned, and I can't thank everybody enough for coming out. Joe, did you want to count? Because we had a wager.
They're just shy of 100.
Hang on, we got Jim Bull back there and Gary. Is this plus 100?
This is shy, just shy.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No, just shy.
One.
I need some of you to step out.
So I will gladly accept a $100 donation to the American Cancer Society. Joe, thank you again. I love it when I'm right.
Shy of 100 here.
You need to borrow 100? I want to share a couple stories. Believe it or not, I would not be here today if it was not for Phil Clevenger. And it's the God's honest truth. 30 years ago, when I was just a young man, wasn't very intelligent, still not, but maybe a little smarter than I was back then. I started with a company called Bridgestone Firestone, my first opportunity at a big corporation. I oversold myself and my abilities, way in over my head. Never left home before, mama's boy. Next thing you know, they want to fly me to California for a week. They want to fly me to Chicago for 2 weeks for training. Man, I'm scared shitless, I'll be honest with you. I'm like, man, I don't know that I could do this. And lo and behold, I go to a meeting and I meet this gentleman named Phil Clevenger with the biggest smile on his face. And he very quickly attached himself to me, and I attached myself to him. And he guided me through what I thought was going to be some of the most difficult times in my life. I didn't think I was cut out for the job. I struggled to understand the corporate world. I really wasn't a good politician. And he kept me steady. We went to all of our training together. And I'm telling you, that was my witness. If it wasn't for that man, I would have bowed out and went and did something else. And I wouldn't be here today. And it's because of him, Robin, the family. Why I'm here, and my team is here, and I thank him all the time for that. Phil always looked out for his family. Family was number one. Everybody knows that. But I know there was times when the kids were going to school, he was working for an organization that he just wasn't happy. He was miserable. And I'm like, Phil, man, why are you doing this? He says, I gotta do it. I'm making good money. This is what keeps a roof over my head. This is what keeps my quality of life. And I gotta get my kids, through college and education. I gotta get that done, and you know what? I'm just not gonna be happy in my work life for a bit until all that happens. And I remember the phone call when he says, well, it's time. Can you maybe help me find a store? Hello.
Uh-oh.
Did the batteries die?
You're loud anyway.
It's on.
Hello.
That was Phil.
Well, me and Phil could break it. The difference is he can fix it. Hey, Phil, what do we do here? Anyway, I was blessed to be able to help him, I think, kind of fulfill one of his dreams, and that was owning a tire center. And it was my honor and privilege to help him get through that era of his life. It was my honor and privilege when he approached me and my team, when he decided to exit and buy the store. I can't thank him enough for that and the family and trusting me with their legacy. He's just been a blessing to me, blessing to my family, obviously a blessing to everybody in this room. I just can't thank him enough. So I could go on and on and on. I could tell 100 stories. Everybody in this room could get up here. We could be here till next month telling stories. I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss him dearly. I miss our morning phone calls. Maybe not the emails so much. Phil is a numbers guy, and hard to believe that he would send me numbers in triplicate.
Can we get a spreadsheet on that?
Like 3 times a day. A couple things I did learn from him also. I learned that early on in Taco Bell, they have this secret green sauce that you can put on your bean burritos. I didn't know they had this early on. So he taught that to me, and how I found out is we would talk every morning on the way to work, and every morning or lunchtime he would get 2 bean and cheese burritos from Taco Bell with this green sauce. I didn't know what this green sauce was, but probably why I got a little bit of a weight issue today. Thank you for that, Phil. One of the last calls I had with Phil shows how much this man just always thinks of others. It was a week before he passed, and he says, "Hey, I'm over here at the store, and they got these toolkits on clearance, earrings, great deal, 50% off." And he says, "This would be great starter kits for your techs, buy our technicians' tools." And I said, "Well, how many they got?" I want them all. He said, "Well, they got 7." I'm like, "I'll take 7." I said, "Hey, do I get your military discount?" Now, I'm a little cheap. Phil's real cheap. He said to me, he says, "You cheap bastard." So I'm like, I still want him, and I'd love to have a discount, which he gave to me. Thank you, Phil. But, as we were preparing for this event, I was admiring his boards over there, and I noticed the check from the government for 50 cents. And I'm thinking to myself, he didn't deposit that? What is it? Does he even know this check's here? Well, we probably need that money in the bank. So, with that, I know there's a few other individuals that want to come up. I don't want to hog the mic because I can go on and on, but thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you for allowing me and our team to host this wonderful event and celebrate Phil and his life and family and the legacy. It's truly an honor to be here to do this for him. So thank you so much.
Good morning or afternoon now. I have to say that this is my first celebration of life that I've showed up in a t-shirt and a ball cap. with a solo cup full of beer all day. I fucking like it. So thank you for that, Phil. This is exactly how you would want your send-off, and me too. My name's Joe. I met Phil in 97, 98. I'm trying to remember the date, it's been a while now. He did work for Firestone, me and Tony worked for Firestone. I was an up-and-comer. I was in my very early 20s at that time, and I went through class with everything, and my last stop was to go help a new manager that just came on board, Phil Clevenger, right? So I'm like, fine, but dude, it's time for me to get a store. And they're like, Joe, we promise you this will be your last stop. I said, okay. So I go out, hit the store, me and Phil, do the pleasantry time, Joe, Phil. Have a quick thing, business starts happening, and I jump in and I'm starting to help him clean up the store from the previous manager and selling and this and that. And he says, man, you already know what you're doing. And I was like, oh, Phil, they didn't send me out here for you to help me. They sent me out here for me to help you. And he stops, right, and he starts laughing in that laugh. And he's like, JoJo, me and you are gonna get along just fine. And we absolutely did. I'm gonna miss our conversations. I'm gonna miss JoJo, what's shaking? Whether he called or came in, sat in my office for 30 or 45 minutes before he walked into the rest of the office, or just called and I'd call him to BS, and we could talk for 45 minutes or an hour and absolutely say nothing except for laugh at each other back and forth, or we could have some real conversation. But we never got off the phone without laughing, and I learned early on, I think what bonded us was we can find the humor in every goddamn situation. Right? No matter what it was, we can find the humor in it. And I always appreciated that. So, I would just like to share my favorite Phil story with you guys, if it would be all right. So, after Firestone, Phil got a job as a district manager for Pet Toys. And me and Tony were still store managers with Firestone back in those days. And he calls us both up and says, hey man, I want to take you guys to lunch. And so, always in for a free lunch, me and Tony are like, well yeah. So we meet him for lunch, and we're talking for lunch, and of course, the reason for the lunch was he wanted to recruit us to Pet Boys. He was the new district manager and looking to shore up his stores, which all of us would do. And so we go through this lunch, and we're going back and forth about everything, and he's like, at the end of the lunch, he says, well, what do you guys think? And I'm like, well, dude, Phil, I appreciate it, but man, I'm kind of where I'm at. I think it's best for me to stay. And he's like, yeah, I'm not paying for your lunch. And so, me and Tony are laughing, and we ended up paying the bill me and Tony did for him taking us to lunch break. And if you know Phil, you know that's a true story. So, I will miss her. Thank you.
I'm Barbara, and I'm Phil Smith. I'm not going to be telling any job stories or anything like that. As neat and fun as they sound, mine are kind of like childhood little stories. So hopefully you'll find them as endearing as I did. Anyway, Phil was born in 1962 after the birth of 3 girls. And in those days, they didn't have sonograms and unless there was some kind of a problem or something. So after 3 girls, our boy was born. His dad was so excited that He was born downtown at a hospital that was downtown Mesa. And on the way home from the hospital, taking him home, my husband rolled down all the car windows and he starts honking a horn and he yells out the window, "I got a boy, I got a boy." And so even his sisters were happy to have a little boy in the house because they wanted somebody that they could play house with. And they ended up, fixing him up and putting different clothes on him and taking him for stroller rides and all that. And he was really pretty okay with them, kind of pampering him around. Well, as he got bigger, he always liked things with wheels. He had several train sets and tons of Hot Wheels and cars and trucks. In his younger years, he spent hours playing in the sandbox or the dirt hill with his trucks. As he grew older, he graduated to bikes and full-size trucks. He always liked tinkering around with mechanical things. Early on, taking things apart, but not always knowing how to put them back together. He hung out with his dad as he was fixing cars and trucks, and all the kids had to know how to change oil in their vehicle and change a flat tire before they were able to allowed to drive on their own, even if they were 16. So he had a natural thing for wheels and trucks. Phil was a natural salesman. Somewhere around 5th or 6th grade, I happened to go outside on a summer morning and I saw a neighbor boy mowing our yard. Phil was watching him in the chair. And I asked Phil, I said, "Why is your friend mowing our yard?" He says, "Oh, he wants to. He's even paying me for letting him do it." As you can imagine, that got shot down pretty quick. But it just shows you that he already had the predestination for being a good salesman. The proudest moment as a mother was seeing Phil's graduation from the Marine Corps basic camp at Camp Pendleton. There was an outside ceremony where they marched. It was all Phil could do to march without a limp. He had injured himself in basic training, but there were, you know how the service is, they have all these rules. And, and one of them was that you couldn't be on crutches to graduate. You had to be able to motivate on your own. So he gritted it through and marched with his teammate, his corps mates. And then that ceremony was followed by a ceremony inside. And when we went inside for the rest of the ceremony, between the patriotic music, the pictures of his camp, and him standing so straight and tall in his uniform, made me so proud of him. I cried tears of pride the whole ceremony. He got recognized for his sharp shooting. And I also need to note that that injury followed him his whole life after that. But I loved him very much. He was a man's man, but he also was kind and gentle. He was a wonderful father and husband, and I feel blessed that he was my son.
So Phil works with me at Big O Tires. So Tony told the story about Phil selling the store. So we were looking for what we call a franchise business consultant in this Phoenix area, and we weren't having real good luck. So Tony's like, hey, I got a guy, we're working on a deal, just hang in there. So I knew Phil as a franchisee, and then came and interviewed him for the role. Perfect fit. So through the luck of everything that happens, things happen for a reason, Phil was able to come to work for us. And he was a great asset. So some of the things I think about Phil, he was very even-keeled. He liked things the way he liked them. He always had a calming presence. No matter what was going on around him, Phil came in and it was like, we'll get through it, everything's okay. And one of the things I always appreciate about Phil during meetings, and as I interact with him, he was never afraid to be quiet when he needed to be, and he was never afraid to talk when he needed to talk. And he always recognized when each one of those were appropriate. He was very secure and confident in who he was. He never sugarcoated things, but he was always positive, or maybe sometimes he wasn't so positive when he needed to be. And you probably knew that when you started having a conversation, because there was just a little bit of an edge in his voice. Y'all mentioned Phil being cheap. Phil was also cheap in his expense reports. He always had the lowest expense reports, so he's about the only person I know in this role that would go out with franchisees and let them pay. So I'm going to tell a story. This story may not be accurate, but certainly accurate from Phil's version to me. Right? So he was super excited about his first grandson. Super excited about it. Right? So he couldn't wait for it. And then he found out after he got a grandson that Kira and John have been reading books. And you know, this generation reads books and they come up with rules. And there's rules we have to follow, Gary. I don't know how we're going to survive this. So Phil's going to respect everyone and he's going to work through it. But these rules are crazy. I don't know where they came up with. So that went on for a little while. And then I talked to Phil, I was like, how's the rules going? Phil goes, well, let me tell you what happened to the rules. So this may not be true, but it's Phil's version. He goes, one day they call and they say, hey, we want to drop the grandson off. And he goes, no, we have to set up an appointment and we have to schedule this because that's the way the rules work. So after that, things became a little more relaxed according to Phil, and he was able to enjoy things and everything like that. So as you talk about Phil, that was probably one of the biggest smiles I've ever seen as he's telling the story, because the rules disappeared and he could spoil and do the things that he wanted to do. So very special person, very happy that we were able to know him and get to spend time and the influence that he had on our life and with our business. So thank you.
All right, try to get through this and not ramble here. My name's Michael Sharp. I had the pleasure with working with Phil twice in two different roles. I came to Arizona in 2016 and joined the franchise team with Big O. And my first, we call them conversions, but was Phil Clevenger. He purchased the store from a fellow franchisee, Carl Gabbard, on Peoria. Yeah, Peoria. And that was, I guess fall of 2016. So just some things I loved about Phil is absolutely his love for his family. I never knew what an FJ Cruiser was till I met Phil. And you talking about, he had an absolute love affair with that vehicle and still does. So I remember showing up, he got a new FJ Cruiser, and on top of it was a tent that you pop up to go backpacking or to go camping. And we walked out there and looked at it, and I'm trying to envision myself getting up in it. And I said, so you and your wife Robin are going camping? Yep, you're going to get in that. She loves me, she'll do it. So. We both have a love affair with barbecue and fixing different stuff. But I learned quickly that Phil Clevenger doesn't eat chicken. He said no claws or beaks. So that ruled out Chick-fil-A for wait, Chick-fil-A. He had to get the iced tea. So I just remember going in the store when he first got started, and he had this, I think it's about a 43-inch TV screen in his office there. And the first visit I go in there, it's mounted, and he proceeds to show me what? A spreadsheet. And he's just amazing at Excel. So, like many other owners, he proceeds to tell me what our opportunities are at Big O. Imagine that. I've never seen that before. So Phil we would agree to disagree on many things, but there's a lot of times that you go into a franchisee and you have a program that you present to them. I always got one reply: "What's Tony doing?" So I always had to vet everything through Tony Williams, and if Tony approved, then Phil did it. So 2023, Gary just mentioned we had nobody wanted to work with me in Arizona, and so we had an opening, and it just so happened that Phil was deciding to sell his store, and we approached him with the opportunity to join the corporate side. And it was April of 2023, and his first week we're training at the warehouse. And as the story goes, our great distribution system has made some major changes, and it was not going well. And I'm in day 2 of it, and I'm getting my blank handed to me every day, and Phil's watching me, and he said, "What did I sign up for?" So, we got through it, but I just remember his first visit, he went to kind of a challenging owner. He said, "Man, can you believe that? I go in the store, and he tells me what's wrong with Big O." And I just think back to his days as an owner. It's just just full circle. So just to wind this up, man, Phil, he loved his family. I remember March of last year, we're getting ready for our convention, and about 3 weeks away from the big date, and he says, "I want to go to convention." I said, "You're not going to convention, you're going to be a grandfather." And he said, "I'm just kidding." And so he absolutely, when Asher was born, he had such a love and affection for being in the delivery room. He told me that story too. It was fantastic. So I know Bill's up there. He's cooking either brisket or ribs. I know he's not doing chicken, but he was always. We didn't always get to see each other because we had different parts of Arizona, but we talked every Monday. And just like Joe talked about, our conversations were always about family, always about our hobbies. God, he liked guns, man. I didn't know anything about guns, but that man knew guns and ammunition, so he schooled me up on that. But we would always talk about that stuff, and then we'd get down to the real stuff about what was wrong with Big O. No, I'm just kidding. So, Phil, I already miss you. Robin, you're surrounded by your family, but you look around, you got the Big O family. We love you. We'll do anything to support you, and just lean on us. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Say anything, but I'm just going to say a few things. I mean, Phil and I met, in 1989. I lied to him. I was telling Tony the other day. He was in the Marine Corps and I was in the Navy. and we met off base, because it was the 4th of July. And I told him, I said, he says, oh, do you want to go out? I'm like, yeah, of course, because we'd had a good conversation and whatnot. So it was, a couple days later, they have field day on Thursdays where they clean all their barracks and stuff. And so it was that following Friday, and instantly we hit it off. I mean, we had a great time together. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, guess what? And he's like, what? I go, we're getting married. And he looked at me like, psycho. And I go, no, I'm serious. I don't know what happened in your past relationships, and you might have come from a jacked up background, but I'm okay. And he's like, okay. And he's like, I'm just gonna ride this out, until I get my next duty station. And fast forward, about a year or so later, I'm sneaking to get married because my mom has this wedding plan in May in Ohio, where I'm from. And I'm like, no, I need to secure this real quick. So we're gonna go to Nevada, and we're in the Clark County, and it's late. We can't afford, the Elvis, the little white chapel that I wanted, because we were too broke. So we went to the courthouse, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, because that was the only place that does that all night long in Vegas. And I'm writing my marriage certificate. He goes, hey babe, you put the wrong year. And I go, no, I didn't. You know what, mind your business and fill out your certificate. And he goes, no, babe, he goes, this is a legal document. Now, he's a rule follower. He always has been, and I'm not. I go, just mind your business and fill out your paperwork. And he goes, but babe, he goes, you're putting 1969. I go, okay, I lied. I go, I'm not 21, I'm 19. I just want you to think I could get into the bars and stuff, man. So do you still want to do this or not? And of course, long story short, we did. But that short amount of time, he was my best friend. When he got stationed in Japan, I had $1,600 phone bills. I was stationed in Mississippi. Because they say that you join the Navy to see the world. Well, that's bullshit. Because if anybody knows Mississippi ain't the world. And I told Tony this the other day. I said, when I left Ohio, I wanted to be a corpsman, a hospital corpsman. I wanted to help people. Well, that one wasn't open, and the fastest that I could leave was to work on engines. So I worked, I passed. It goes to show anybody can pass a book test, anybody can. And it's a Friday night, I'm getting ready, I'm on top of the engine, and you have to check out your tools, and I'm changing a water pump, which seems to be like, it shouldn't be no big deal. This is a 30-minute project. And I dropped this little pair of pliers, and it goes ding, 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 ding. And I was like, screw that, I ain't getting it. May God be with me, guys. May the force be with me. Because I don't like this job anyway. Needless to say, shortly after that, they switched me roles. Fast forward, months later, I called Phil and I go, you know what? I go, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, nothing. I go, well, I said, I got an honorable discharge and I'm leaving. And I'm on my way to San Diego. I'll be there. I said, so you need to get an apartment, 24 hours. And he's like, okay, I'll see you. We'll meet in Hotel Circle, San Diego. So I drive this straight through. I didn't tell my mom because she'd be freaking out. So I just drove straight through. And I stopped because I was lost. And I go, babe, I'm in La Jolla, California. I have no idea where I am. He goes, it's La Jolla. I go, it's La Jolla. I'm sitting here reading it. And he would just shake his head. He's, God, you can take the girl out of the trailer. We can't take the trailer out of the trailer. And got there, we rented just a cheap place in Oceanside. I mean, we had the best time. You know, he went to Desert Storm the first time. You know, I came back, of course, like everybody else, you have your first baby. And then we moved again because he got out so that we wouldn't have to move around. So then we, you know, went to work for Tire America, moved like 12 times in 9 months. And never was I allowed to get a travel crib. He's like, no, we don't need one. I'm like, so I do believe in payback because, you know, we were living in the hotel room. The kids are itty bitty and we're traveling all the time. And he was trying to sell me on this, like as long as you stay in the hotel room, you're making more money. And then one night he gets out of the shower and he steps on one of those big yellow Legos. He's like, we're getting a house and we're not moving again. We get transferred to all over. You know, I watched the OJ trial in Michigan, and I'm like, you gotta get me the hell out of here. Like, I can't do Michigan, and I'm not in New York. I need south, or I need west. So we went back, you know, to Arizona, and our Sears calls, and they said, guess what? We're gonna move you guys to Long Island, New York. And I go, remember me, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a hillbilly. I don't ever want to even see New York, to be honest. No, I'm not going. And I've traveled this whole time. Well, we ended up not going. I mean, he ended up taking another job with another company, but long story short, I mean, everything, he was my best friend. I loved him more than life. We had 2 great kids. And that night when I called Tony, you know, I called Kira. I called my mom. And then I picked up Phil's phone and I said, Tony answers, Phil always said, if something ever happens, and this was when we owned our store too, call Tony, he'll help. And I picked up the phone, Phil's phone, and I called Tony, and Tony goes, hey, Phil! And I go, it's not Phil. And I need help. And a month before that, we had met some other people, or I did, they go, and I met Gary's wife before Dana, she's just full of energy, and, you know, and I sat next to Tim's wife, Cheryl, and instantly I knew she was having a little big granddaughter soon, and she was flying out here, and we aligned with our thought process, like of how we raised our kids and the things that we did to sacrifice to stay home as long as we could. And every day, you know, I would get these texts and I'm like, and I was telling Tony, I go, you know, this has been the best 2 years of mine and Phil's life because he worked at home more and I work from home. Everybody knows I shouldn't be an underwriter, but they're all here. And with all my ADD and all that, you know, Phil's right in the other room. I'm like, I need the IT department. Like, I need him to come and fix it. And he fixed it. Like, he did everything for me. I mean, everything. And so to learn to move on, and I will. Because I've got great kids, I've got amazing friends. And I'm just so thankful that you're all here, and I'm so thankful that you celebrated his life with me. So thank you.
I would like a business card. Rubber stamp loans. Anybody else, I would like to get a loan today. Thanks, open. I want to thank everybody for coming out. We've still got a lot of celebrating to do. It's early. If you'd like to stay and have a cigar, a cocktail, please have some more food, please. I don't know how much longer I can be barbecue. We actually ordered some food a couple days ago from Caldwell's just to take it for a test drive. For 15, I think we had food for 50. Anyway, so make yourself at home. Everybody relax, have a good time. Let's just continue the conversation. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you.
If anybody would like to take food home, I have tons of to-go containers, and I'll make sure I put them out on the table. So take whatever you would like, please.
Good for Super Bowl weekend.